What if your entire world collapsed and your response was silence, not rage, not begging, not trying to prove you're still worth loving, just silence, dignified, intentional, calm like a blade? Divorce isn't just pain, it's identity collapse. It rips away not just the relationship, but the man you thought you were inside it. And while most men drown in that silence, Marcus Aurelius would turn it into power. Today, we're not here to escape the pain. We're here to face it with force. We're here to ask, not what you feel, but who you become when everything breaks. Because when the story you built falls apart, your real character walks in. You thought you lost her, but what if what really collapsed was your illusion of control? Divorce doesn't just take a person away. It takes the version of you that existed through them. The man you were when she looked at you with respect. The rhythm of your day, the meaning behind your actions. The quiet certainty that someone was waiting for you, and when that disappears, you're not just alone, you're disoriented. You wake up with a pulse, but no direction. You're alive, but not fully here. That's why it feels like death, not because of what she did, but because you no longer recognize yourself in the absence of her. Marcus Aurelius would see that moment for what it is, not as destruction, but as exposure. Exposure of where you've built your identity, on externals, on admiration, on comfort, on the illusion that love equals safety. You have power over your mind and not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That's not just philosophy, it's a weapon, because what you're facing now is not just heartbreak. It's the collapse of a false foundation, and that collapse, it's sacred. It means you've been invited brutally to return to your center. Marcus would not call his friends to vent. He wouldn't post indirect messages online. He wouldn't spiral into shame. He'd write, he'd breathe, he'd narrow the battlefield to where it truly matters, his own mind. Ask yourself now, not as a man wounded, but as a man awakening. Am I really broken, or just finally confronted with what I refused to see? Did I lose her, or did I lose the distraction that kept me from myself? Did I love her, or did I love the way she made me feel needed? This pain is not the enemy, it's the messenger. And if you sit with it long enough, without judgment, without narrative, it will tell you something true. It will show you what you built on dependency. It will show you where you softened your standards to keep peace. It will show you the moments you abandoned yourself to be accepted. And then it will offer you something rare, the chance to rebuild. Not a relationship, but a center, a weight, a posture that no one can take from you again. Before you try to move on, before you look for someone else, before you numb this moment with distraction, ask yourself, what exactly did I lose, and what still belongs? Only to me, because that's where your real life and the one no one can destroy begins. Most men react, Marcus responded. In the face of betrayal, abandonment, or silence, most men explode or collapse. But Marcus Aurelius would do neither. He'd tighten his presence. He'd shrink the external and expand the internal. Because for the Stoic, the real battlefield isn't the court. It's not the lawyer. It's not even her. It's your own mind when you're left alone with it. Divorce isn't the destruction of your life. It's the exposure of how much of it depended on someone else's behavior. That's not punishment. That's revelation. And Marcus, he would write, he would reflect, he would ask questions no one else dares to. What part of this pain is mine to own? What part am I inventing to avoid facing my own weakness? He would not make her the villain. He would not make himself the victim. He would stay in the middle, where truth lives, where dignity breathes. The best revenge, he said, is not to be like your enemy. And yet, how many men, after a divorce, become bitter, loud, impulsive? How many start acting like the very chaos they say destroyed them? That's not masculinity. That's possession by pain. Aurelius would sit with the fire, but not burn others with it. He'd use it to forge a quieter form of power, a power that doesn't need to explain itself, a power that doesn't scream, a power that simply stands, unmoved. That's the posture of someone who's seen ruin and refused to let it define his next move. Let's be brutally honest. Your silence, your discipline, your presence, they don't just protect your peace. They command respect, even from the person who hurt you, and maybe especially from yourself. You don't need to retaliate. You need to remember who you are, without the need to prove it. This isn't about suppressing your emotion. It's about transmuting it from noise into clarity, from chaos into code. And that code, if you want to live by it, starts here. No emotional replies within 24 hours. No self-humiliation in text messages. No trying to control what she thinks of you. Let her go. Hold your posture and make your next chapter unshakable, because what she does now doesn't define your strength, but what you do next does. There's a kind of silence that comes from weakness, from fear, from passivity, from not knowing what to say. And there's another kind, a silence that commands, a silence that reveals presence without performance, a silence that makes people feel your absence, even when you're in the room. Marcus Aurelius would choose that one. He wouldn't argue, he wouldn't chase, he wouldn't explain his worth to someone who decided to forget it, because the Stoic doesn't defend his value, he embodies it, calmly, fully, without theatrics. The modern world confuses loudness with power, but the man who can hold his tongue when his ego is bleeding, that's the man everyone quietly respects and no one forgets. Divorce invites noise. Family pressure, legal drama, texts full of blame, friends taking sides, and inside all that, one man, you, deciding who you will be in the storm. Marcus would decide with silence, with presence, with a kind of stillness that feels like steel. He wouldn't vent online. He wouldn't perform strength on Instagram. He wouldn't post quotes to suggest how much he doesn't care. He would simply not explain himself, because explanation is often a disguised plea for understanding. And the Stoic knows, if someone doesn't want to understand you, no amount of words will ever reach them. So he saves his energy. He writes in private. He sharpens his thoughts before he opens his mouth, and when he speaks, it's measured. Not defensive, not emotional, not apologetic. That's the kind of man people listen to, because he doesn't speak to be heard. He speaks because it's time. Silence is not withdrawal, it's positioning. It shows you're not reactive, you're intentional. You're not looking to fight, but you're ready to stand. So here's your tool. No emotional replies within 24 hours. No response unless it serves your clarity, not your pride. No reaching out to fix what someone else chose to break. Let them think what they want. Let them spin their version of the story. You don't need to correct it. You need to outlive it. Because in the end, Marcus Aurelius wouldn't try to win the breakup. He'd win himself back, and that's the only victory that lasts. Every man feels the pull, that quiet urge to prove he's still valuable, to show her what she lost, to rebuild fast, not from clarity but from ego. But Marcus Aurelius wouldn't chase that impulse. He'd watch it rise and let it pass, because rebuilding from pain is not the same as rebuilding from power. One is noise, the other is legacy. You don't need a revenge body, you don't need a rebound. You don't need to post pictures of how free you are. You need direction, you need structure, you need a rhythm so aligned with your core that no one has the power to shake it again. A Stoic doesn't rebuild to be seen. He rebuilds because virtue demands movement, even when the heart feels heavy. This is when you reset your mornings. This is when you train in silence. This is when you wake up, not to distract yourself, but to reforge yourself. Because the man who can move forward without bitterness, without theatrics, without needing applause, that man becomes unshakable. Ask yourself, what kind of life would make me respect me again? What habits would I keep if no one ever saw them? What would it look like to rebuild, not to escape pain, but to honor it? You don't need to prove your worth. You need to build a life so aligned with your values that nothing external has the power to define your worth again. Rebuilding doesn't start with action. It starts with standard. And Marcus, he would start small, wake early, speak less, train often, think deeply. He wouldn't announce his comeback. He'd live it, and the world would notice, not because he shouted, but because his silence now carried weight. At the end of it all, after the storm, after the silence, after the long nights of rebuilding, there's only one thing that matters. Who did you become? Not what she said, not what the court decided, not who moved on first, but what kind of man stood up from the wreckage. Marcus Aurelius wouldn't call himself strong. He'd let his discipline speak. He'd let his routine speak. He'd let his peace, his posture, his presence speak. Because real strength is invisible until it's tested. And when it is, it doesn't flinch. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to be colder. You need to be clearer, clear in your values, clear in your boundaries, clear in your response to adversity. And that clarity, it doesn't come from philosophy books. It comes from sitting with the pain and refusing to let it make you small. Divorce didn't break you, it revealed you. Now you choose. Will you stay broken because it's easier to blame? Or will you sharpen into someone even you hadn't met yet? Write that version of you, structure his day, train his habits, speak with his voice. And when someone asks, How did you get through that? You won't need a story, you'll just be the evidence, because a Stoic doesn't survive loss. He transcends it, quietly, powerfully, without needing to be seen. You didn't come here for easy answers. You came because something in you refuses to live like a victim. Today, you saw that divorce isn't just pain, it's a brutal mirror. It strips away the illusions. It tests your posture. It forces you to choose between reaction and command. You face the collapse of who you thought you were. You learned to hold your ground without shouting. You saw that silence can be strategy, not surrender, and that rebuilding is not about rushing, it's about raising your standard. Now you know, strength doesn't need to prove itself. It just needs to stand, clear, calm, and untouchable. The world shouts. You don't need to. You only need clarity, discipline, presence, and the quiet decision to never betray yourself again. If this gave you clarity, honor it. Tap like. If this gave you direction, don't walk alone. Subscribe. This isn't just a channel, it's a place where broken men stop bleeding and start building. Silence isn't weakness, it's where your next level begins.